The Galactic Council chamber was a cathedral of light and arrogance. Silver arches curved high above the delegates, shimmering with streams of coded data that represented the pulse of 1,000 civilizations. Holographic sigils hovered over each species seat, emerald, violet, azure, while the human emblem, a simple blue sphere, flickered like a dying signal. Admiral Alara Voss sat beneath it, her face composed, her eyes steady. She'd faced plasma fire, vacuum breaches, and near death more times than she could count. None of that had prepared her for the quiet humiliation of this room. "Order!" hissed Chancellor Xyrix Talcon, his scaled features catching the pale light. His golden eyes swept the amphitheater. "We convene under Resolution 71 Delta, the subordination accord of the Terran species." The translator embedded in Alara's collar buzzed softly as the words rippled through the chamber. She didn't need the translation. She understood the tone, the same tone she'd heard in the voice of every occupying force in history. The Serati Chancellor gestured toward her with delicate precision, as if flicking away a nuisance. "For too long, humanity has been permitted freedoms beyond its maturity. Your reckless wars, your resource hoarding, your emotional volatility, these threaten the stability of the Council itself." A murmur of agreement ran through the chamber. The Dreth delegates clicked their mandibles in approval. The Vethan emissaries' translucent gills pulsed in affirmation. A dozen species nodded, secure in the belief that peace was best maintained by shackles. Alara rose slowly. Her uniform, black with a single silver stripe, seemed almost drab against the opulent garments of the other races. But when she spoke, her voice carried farther than the Chancellor's. "Humanity joined this council on the promise of equality," she said. "We shared technology, we opened trade, we bled beside your soldiers during the Zoran incursions. And now you brand us unstable because we refused to bow?" The hall stilled. For a heartbeat, only the hum of energy conduits filled the silence. Xyrix's eyes narrowed. "We offer protection, not punishment. You misunderstand the gift." Alara's jaw tightened. "Protection from whom? The galaxy? Or from yourselves when you realize you can't control us?" Gasps echoed around the chamber. A few delegates turned off their holofeeds, unwilling to be recorded agreeing or objecting. The Chancellor leaned forward, his voice silky and venomous. "You will find defiance costly, Admiral. This decree is law. The Terran fleet will disarm. All colonies will submit to oversight. Earth will remain a protectorate until deemed civilized." The word civilized landed like a blade. Alara didn't move. She didn't speak. Instead, she reached into her pocket and drew out a small metallic shard, the insignia of the Terran Fleet Command. She set it gently on the glowing podium before her. The motion was calm, almost reverent. "Then consider this my resignation," she said quietly. "And my declaration." "Declaration?" Xyrix repeated, his forked tongue twitching. Alara met his gaze, her eyes steady as forged steel. "You may call it what you like. But when history records this day, it won't remember your decree. It'll remember the moment humanity stopped asking for permission." The chamber erupted in noise, outrage, disbelief, a rising tide of alien voices. The Chancellor's command staff scrambled to mute the broadcast feed. Alara turned and walked out, boots striking the polished floor in measured rhythm. No one stopped her. They didn't dare. Outside the chamber, the corridors of the Council Citadel stretched into infinity, lined with columns of living crystal. She passed guards in reflective armor who looked everywhere but at her. Her wrist comm vibrated once, a secure frequency, earth-coded. "Command to Voss," came a soft voice. It was Captain Arjun Singh, her second in command. "We saw the feed. You just painted a target on your back." "I've been a target since the day they met me," Alara said, striding toward the transport bay. "What's the status of Iron Veil?" "Ready for Phase 1. Awaiting your mark." "Send it." There was a pause. "Confirmed." "You're sure?" "Do it," she said. "And Arjun, make it look like an accident." The line cut. A pulse of light flared far across the void, a subtle, invisible shift in the galactic data grid. No alarms sounded. No ships moved. But in the deep, hidden threads of the Council's own network, human code began to rewrite reality. Elara stepped onto the transport platform. The air shimmered, molecules folding around her body as the jump field engaged. When the light cleared, she was aboard the Terran flagship Resolute Dawn, orbiting the blue curve of Earth. The bridge crew rose when she appeared. Lieutenant Quinn turned from her console, pale but determined. "Ma'am, we're reading Council surveillance blindness across 12 sectors. They can't see us." Elara gave a single nod. "Good. Then we move under the veil." A low murmur spread through the room, half relief, half awe. Every officer there knew what defiance meant. But they also knew what surrender had cost their ancestors. From the observation deck, Earth hung suspended in silence, clouds glinting gold under the sun. For a long moment, Elara simply watched. That was what they were fighting for, not dominance, not revenge, but dignity. Her comms officer hesitated. "Admiral, the Council sent a transmission. They're demanding compliance within 24 hours. Elara's lips curved faintly. "Then they'll have to wait 25. The bridge chuckled softly, tension easing for the first time in days. "Patch me to Earth Command," she ordered. The holographic seal of the Terran Confederation appeared, a silver eagle superimposed over the continents. "Admiral Voss, report," came the voice of General Key Monroe from the command hub beneath the Pacific Arcology. "Resolution 71 Delta has passed," Elara said evenly. "They've declared us subordinate." Static filled the channel before Monroe replied. "Understood. What's your assessment?" "They think we'll kneel," Elara said. "They've mistaken silence for surrender." Monroe's tone hardened. "Then it's time they remember who we are." Elara looked through the viewport at the distant stars, each one a witness. "They will," she said. "Initiating Iron Veil sequence. Global synchronization in 3 hours." As she ended the transmission, the hum of the Resolute Dawn deepened, the sound of systems aligning, hidden protocols activating, every human ship linking into a quiet, invisible unity. Elara touched the insignia on her wrist, replica of the one she'd left behind in the council chamber. Her father's emblem. The man who'd told her, on his deathbed, "Never let them write the story for us." She whispered into the silence. "Not today, Dad." From the command deck, the fleet spread out like a constellation reborn. No banners, no war cries, just purpose. Elara raised her voice so every ship could hear. "This isn't war," she said. "Not yet. This is a reminder. We're human. We endure. We adapt. And when they push..." She paused, her gaze steady on the endless dark. "We push back harder." The stars reflected in her eyes like sparks ready to ignite. The galaxy would remember this silence, the calm before the storm called humanity. "You said?" The night side of Earth glowed with scattered veins of light, cities pulsing like neurons beneath a planetary skull. From high orbit, the Terran fleet watched in silence as the Iron Veil took its first breath. Invisible signals rippled across quantum channels, carried by algorithms older than trust and sharper than any blade. Admiral Elara Voss stood at the center of the Resolute Dawn's bridge, the cold gleam of starshine casting shadows beneath her eyes. Around her, officers worked in quiet precision, their focus absolute. They were soldiers and scientists, but tonight they were also thieves, stealing back control from a galaxy that had already written humanity's epitaph. "Report," Elara said. Lieutenant Quinn's hands danced over the holodouble. "All fleet systems linked. Quantum nodes aligned. Iron Veil propagation at 60% and climbing. The Council surveillance arrays are feeding false telemetry now." Elara nodded once. "And the Seriki sensors?" "Blind," Quinn replied. "They're seeing phantom echoes of their own ships. They'll think we're still docked at Luna." "Good," Elara murmured. "Let them watch ghosts." The doors hissed open. Captain Arjun Singh stepped in, dark hair pulled back, uniform crisp despite the fatigue in his eyes. "We have a situation, Admiral," Speak. Chancellor Xyrix has mobilized the Cerati Armada. They're calling it a peace enforcement operation. 3 fleets moving toward Mars orbit. Alara's expression didn't change. Timetable? 72 hours until arrival. Less if they use warp corridors. So soon. She crossed her arms, gaze locked on the planetary curve beyond the viewport. They were waiting for an excuse. Arjun's jaw tightened. They won't stop at Mars. They'll push for Earth. Alara turned toward him, her tone even. Then they'll find something waiting. He hesitated. Alara, once we deploy the second phase, there's no reversing it. The Council will see it as an act of war. She studied him for a long moment. It isn't war until someone fires first. Arjun met her eyes. And when they do? Then we remind them why they should have listened when we were still asking. A flicker of unease crossed his face, but he nodded and left to oversee preparations. Quinn looked up from her console. Ma'am, Phase 2 authorization pending your final code. Alara placed her palm on the biometric pad. The screen pulsed red, then green. Authorization VAS 7 iron. Execute. Instantly, the veil expanded. Across the void, thousands of microsatellites embedded within the Council's relay network turned dormant. Artificial intelligences that had monitored human transmissions for decades suddenly began to feed on themselves, generating noise instead of truth. Every mention of Earth Terran or Fleet Command in the galactic archives dissolved into static. Within minutes, humanity became a digital ghost. Quinn exhaled softly. We're invisible. No, Alara corrected. We're forgotten. There's a difference. The bridge fell silent. The hum of systems filled the space like a heartbeat. Below, deep within the ship's research bay, Dr. Lyra Quinn, no relation to the lieutenant, oversaw the Veil's core. She was short, sharp-minded, and perpetually surrounded by holographic equations that spun like constellations around her. When Alara entered, Lyra didn't look up. You're early, Lyra said, voice clipped. Usually you wait until the universe starts falling apart. Consider this a head start, Alara replied. Lyra waved a hand, bringing up a model of the Cerati data grid. It shimmered in red, pulsing with interference. Their encryption lattice is stronger than we predicted. It's self-repairing. Every time we cut a line, it grows another. Can you hold it? Hold it, yes. Control it, no. If they trace it back. They won't, Alara said. Their pride won't let them believe anyone could. Lyra glanced up, eyes narrowing. That's not strategy. That's faith. Sometimes faith is all that keeps the air in your lungs, Alara said quietly. For a moment neither spoke. The hum of the Veil core filled the room, a low, resonant thrum like a heartbeat magnified across light years. Lyra sighed. You know what happens if this escalates? If they strike Earth? They'll find us prepared, Alara cut in. Every defense network synced. Every colony's under silent command. We've lived through extinction events before. This one will just have better lighting. Lyra managed a faint smile. You always make genocide sound poetic. Let's hope we never have to test the pros. Alara turned to leave, but paused at the threshold. Keep the course stable. No matter what happens. When she returned to the bridge, the mood had shifted. A communications officer looked up, pale. Admiral, Council emergency broadcast. They're accusing us of cyberterrorism. Xyrix is calling for immediate sanctions. Expected, Alara said. Responses? The Andari and Vethan delegations abstained. The Zokar offered to mediate. Alara's eyebrow rose. Mediators with plasma claws. Touching. She walked to the main viewport as Earth's sunrise began to bloom, gold spilling across the curve of the world. Patch the broadcast to Fleet Command. A projection shimmered to life, a live image of Chancellor Xyrix addressing the Council from Velar Prime. His voice filled the air, cold and serpentine. Humanity has violated the sanctity of interstellar order. They've infected our systems, endangered billions, and declared independence through deceit. They have become a contagion. Elara let the words roll off her like rain. Contagion, she muttered. That's new. Xyrix continued. We will bring them under control, for their own safety and for the peace of the galaxy. The projection froze as Elara cut the feed. Peace, she said softly. That word has buried more bodies than war ever did. Arjun returned, datapad in hand. Mars colonies are evacuating. They're preparing shelters. Council fleets are en route. Then we hold orbit and stay dark. They'll think we're cowering. Let them. He frowned. And when they reach Mars? Elara's eyes were distant. That's where they'll start learning. He hesitated, then asked the question that had hung between them for days. You really think this will work? The veil, the deception, everything? Elara didn't answer immediately. Instead, she looked at the stars beyond the glass. We've always been underestimated. That's the one constant across the galaxy. They see emotion and call it weakness. They see compassion and call it naivety. But they've never understood what happens when you corner something that feels. Her voice lowered, deliberate and fierce. It fights. It endures. And it changes everything. Silence followed, heavy but electric. Finally, Arjun straightened. Then I'll make sure our corner holds. He turned to leave. Elara watched him go, knowing the weight he carried mirrored her own. When the doors closed behind him, she keyed her private console. The display shimmered with encrypted text. A message flickered onto the screen, one line, no signature. Project Lazarus awaits confirmation. Elara's reflection merged with the words. She exhaled slowly, the decision forming in the quiet between heartbeats. Not yet, she whispered. But soon. The lights dimmed as the ship entered stealth alignment. From orbit, Earth vanished completely from galactic sensors. To the Council, humanity had become a shadow. To itself, it had become something else entirely, something older, colder, patient as gravity. The void between Mars and Earth was silent, too silent. No signal traffic, no fleet chatter, no light from human engines. Only the soft red curve of Mars drifted below, its thin atmosphere whispering over ancient dunes that had seen centuries of human footsteps. Above it, the darkness was waiting. Chancellor Xyrix's armada emerged from warp space in perfect formation, 3,000 vessels strong, the largest show of power the Council had mustered in a century. Their hulls shimmered with the metallic sheen of the Cerati, long, predatory shapes bristling with weapons. From his command dreadnought Celestial Dominion, Xyrix gazed upon the red world with a cold smile. Scan for human presence, he ordered. Negative readings, Chancellor, hissed his sensor chief. The Terrans appear to have evacuated their colonies. Cowards, Xyrix said softly. They run, as expected. But deep beneath Mars' surface, humanity wasn't running. It was listening. Inside an underground command bunker, Captain Arjun Singh stood before a wall of holographic feeds. Static danced across them like restless ghosts. Fleet movement confirmed, he said, voice calm but taut. They've arrived. Admiral Elara Vasa's image appeared beside him, projected from the Resolute Dawn orbiting Earth. Her face was lit by the pale glow of data streams. Good. Phase 3 begins on my mark. What's their heading? Direct line to Earth. They're using standard assault vectors. Elara nodded slowly. Predictable. They think we're blind. Arjun looked up. Ma'am, if we trigger the Aegis net now, we risk full exposure. They already believe we're gone, Elara said. Let's give them proof that we're very much here. From Mars orbit, Xyrix watched as his fleet moved in disciplined precision. Initiate planetary sweep, he commanded. Destroy all remnants of Terran infrastructure. Leave no trace. The order rippled across the fleet. Beams of blue plasma lanced toward the surface, cutting through empty outposts and hollow domes. Dust rose like ghosts fleeing the light. The Cerati believed victory had already begun. Then the void blinked. For a heartbeat, The sensors of every ship flickered. Data streams stuttered. Coordinates warped. And out of nothing, out of pure absence, hundreds of Terran ships appeared. The Resolute Dawn led them, her dark hull gleaming in the faint red light. The fleet emerged like shadows solidifying into steel. On the celestial dominion, alarm sirens screamed. Contacts, hundreds, closing fast! Cyrix's composure cracked. Impossible! They were cloaked? No, Chancellor, his officer replied, trembling. They were gone. Off every spectrum. Elara's voice cut across every open channel, clear and steady. To the Cerati Armada, this is Admiral Voss of the Terran Fleet. You stand within sovereign space. Leave now or be removed. Cyrix hissed, rage curling through his words. Humanity has no sovereignty. You are property of the Council. Elara's tone didn't change. Then consider this a repossession. The first salvo came from the humans. Not a barrage, just precision. Every Terran ship fired once, targeted, deliberate. The missiles didn't explode, they unfolded mid-flight, releasing swarms of microdrones that latched onto Cerati hulls and ate their way inward. Within seconds, 10 destroyers went dark. Cyrix slammed a clawed hand onto the console. Counter-fire! Burn them from the stars! The Cerati ships responded in kind, beams crisscrossing the void. The sky above Mars became a tapestry of violence, light and shadow, metal and fire. Elara stood at the command dais of the Resolute Dawn, her expression unflinching. Maintain formation Delta 5. No chasing kills. We break them by precision, not pride. Her crew moved with quiet coordination. Every motion practiced, every order crisp. Humanity wasn't fighting for conquest, they were fighting to be remembered correctly. Enemy cruisers closing on flank, Quinn shouted. Deploy Aegis Net, Elara said. From behind the Terran fleet, hundreds of small satellites ignited, weaving a lattice of golden energy. The Cerati beams struck it and scattered harmlessly, lighting the dark like sunrise through glass. Arjun's voice came over comms from Mars Command. The network's stable. They can't penetrate. Good, Elara said. Then it's time they see what invisible really looks like. She nodded to her tactical officer. Activate mirror sequence. A pulse of light rippled from the Resolute Dawn, and every Terran ship vanished again. Only faint distortions remained, phantoms drifting through the chaos. The Cerati fired wildly, hitting one another more often than their target. Panic spread through their ranks. Cyrix roared, slamming his tail against the deck. Find them! I want every scanner in the fleet focused! But the scanners returned only reflections, echoes of Cerati vessels twisted by the veil's interference. Every attempt to locate the humans turned inward. The Terran fleet struck again, sudden and surgical. Ships erupted in bursts of white flame, silent in the void. Inside the Resolute Dawn, Quinn whispered, We're winning! Elara didn't answer immediately. She watched the burning wreckage drift past the viewport. Winning isn't the goal. Surviving is. Another transmission broke through, distorted, desperate. This is the Council Auxiliary Ship Veritas. We're neutral. Stop firing! Elara hesitated for half a second, then said, Stand down and leave our space. You'll live if you move now. The alien commander didn't argue. The Veritas turned away, its thrusters flaring bright as it fled. Arjun's voice came again. Admiral, we're detecting mass warp signatures from the Council core. Reinforcements are inbound. How long? 20 hours, maybe less. Elara's jaw set. Then we end this before they arrive. On the Celestial Dominion, Cyrix realized the truth too late. His armada was being dismantled piece by piece. The humans weren't fighting with brute force. They were dismantling his command network, hacking, jamming, erasing. His fleet couldn't see, couldn't hear, couldn't even retreat. He hissed, venomous fury dripping from every word. Bring me the human flagship's coordinates. I will burn her myself. Locating, Chancellor. Too late. The Resolute Dawn decloaked directly above him, massive and silent, its silhouette blotting out the stars. Alara's voice filled his bridge, calm as gravity. You came to teach us obedience. Allow me to return the lesson. Her ship's main cannon charged, glowing with coalesced plasma. Xyrix stared at it, uncomprehending. You wouldn't dare. You'd risk the council. I'm not risking the council, she said. I'm reminding it who we are. The blast struck the celestial dominion amidships. The flagship split apart, a wound of molten light against the void. Xyrix's final scream was lost to vacuum. When the last Cerati vessel broke and fled, silence returned. The Terran fleet held position above Mars, engines dim. Fires glimmered across the debris field like dying stars. Alara exhaled once. Status report. Minimal losses, Quinn said. 2 destroyers damaged. No fatalities. Alara nodded, her gaze fixed on the remnants drifting through the dark. Transmit to all ships, cease fire. Begin recovery operations. She walked to the viewport and watched the wreckage scatter toward the red planet below. They'll call this an act of aggression, she said quietly. Let them. The galaxy will know we never begged to exist. Arjun's image appeared beside her, faint with static. What now? The aftermath of the battle hung in silence. Wreckage drifted between Mars and the Moon, faintly glowing under the sun's reflection. The Terran fleet moved among the remains, collecting data and survivors, but no one celebrated. There were no cheers, no music, only the quiet hum of systems and the unspoken weight of what had begun. Admiral Alara Vaz stood alone in the command observation deck of the Resolute Dawn. Her reflection merged with the field of burning debris beyond the glass. The void felt heavier now, as if the stars themselves were holding their breath. Captain Arjun Singh entered quietly, datapad in hand. Council transmission just came through, he said. Encrypted, priority 1. Alara didn't turn. Let me guess. Condemnation, threats, and promises of peace through obedience? He gave a faint, humorless smile. Word for word. Play it anyway. The holodisplay flared to life. Chancellor Xyrix Talcon was gone, replaced by the Council's emergency proxy, a rotating assembly of alien delegates projected in sterile light. The Andari, the Vethin, the Kshar, each spoke with cold precision, each sentence a carefully measured blade. This act of aggression, the Andari voice droned, constitutes a violation of every interstellar accord. Humanity's continued defiance will be met with collective enforcement. Alara cut the transmission. The light vanished, leaving only darkness and the faint reflection of her eyes. Collective enforcement, she murmured. That's their way of saying extermination. Arjun folded his arms. They can't afford another war, not after what happened today. Half the galaxy watched their fleet die. Humiliation breeds vengeance faster than loss, Alara said quietly. They'll come again, harder, smarter. He hesitated. Then maybe it's time we use Lazarus. Her gaze shifted toward him, sharp as glass. We agreed it's the last resort. And if they bring every fleet in the Council? 10,000 ships, orbital bombardment, planetary sterilization? You can't stop that with clever tactics. Alara looked back at the stars. No. But you can change how they see us. He stepped closer. You're talking about fear. I'm talking about memory. Hours later, the fleet assembled in lunar orbit. From above, Earth glowed, serene, unaware of the storm gathering beyond its skies. The Resolute Dawn anchored at the center, surrounded by the surviving ships of the Terran vanguard. In the ship's lower decks, the heart of Project Lazarus stirred for the first time. Deep in a chamber sealed by quantum locks, a single sphere of obsidian floated in magnetic suspension, surrounded by hundreds of neural conduits. The room hummed faintly, alive in a way no machine should be. Dr. Lyra Quinn stood before it, arms crossed, her expression tense. You're really going through with this? Alara approached, her steps echoing in the sterile light. The Council is already assembling another fleet. We have hours, maybe less. Lyra glanced at the hovering sphere. Lazarus doesn't kill, Alara. It shows. Once it starts, there's no controlling what every connected mind experiences. That's the point. Lyra's voice dropped. You're not just fighting soldiers. You're about to tear open the consciousness of an entire galaxy. Alara's tone was calm. They wanted to understand humanity. I'll give them understanding. For a long moment Ether spoke. The hum of the sphere deepened, the conduits glowing like veins beneath skin. Lyra sighed and entered the activation codes. It'll reach every mind linked to the galactic network, leaders, soldiers, civilians. Once they see it, they won't unsee it. Elara stepped closer, her voice quiet but certain. Then they'll finally know what they've been underestimating. The first pulse went out invisible, a ripple through the lattice of communication relays stretching across 1,000 systems. It moved faster than light, faster than thought itself. One by one, every connected species paused mid-sentence, their eyes dilating as the flood began. They saw Earth's skies burning during the last war. They saw soldiers carrying wounded strangers through fire. They saw cities rebuilt from dust, children laughing among ruins, explorers reaching for the stars despite every reason to stop. They saw defiance not as rebellion, but as instinct. Chancellors and admirals across the galaxy fell silent as the images filled their minds, endless cycles of death, endurance, rebirth. Hiroshima. Chernobyl. The first steps on Mars. The silent courage of faces staring down hopeless odds and smiling anyway. Then the pulse deepened. They felt hunger, grief, love, the totality of what it meant to be human, raw and unfiltered. Empires had crushed resistance before, but none had ever faced the weight of empathy weaponized. On the Resolute Dawn, lights dimmed. The crew felt it too, echoes of memory threading through their minds, blending their consciousness into a single current. For a moment, no one spoke. Even Alara stood motionless, her breath caught as the data of centuries flowed through her. Arjun gripped the console. It's overwhelming. It's who we are, Alara said, voice unsteady but resolute. Every victory, every failure, every refusal to die. He looked at her, eyes wide. You've turned humanity into a message. She shook her head. Into a mirror. On Velar Prime, the Council convulsed under the onslaught of visions. Delegates screamed as they saw through human eyes. The Seriki successor, a young chancellor, clutched at his temples as the weight of human history crashed into his mind, the feeling of standing on the edge of annihilation and laughing because surrender wasn't in the vocabulary. Across the galaxy, fleets halted mid-flight. Soldiers lowered weapons. AI minds, confused by emotion they were never meant to feel, shut down entirely. For 31 seconds, the entire galactic network froze. The galaxy blinked. Then the visions ended. Silence returned, vast and endless. But it wasn't the same silence as before. Reports flooded into the Resolute Dawn, ships retreating, council channels collapsing, systems offline. The galactic core had gone dark. Lyra's voice came through the calm, soft and exhausted. It worked. They're scared. Alara didn't smile. Good. Fear remembers. Arjun turned toward her. And what about us? What happens when they recover? She looked at Earth, spinning below, clouds drifting peacefully over blue oceans. Then we face them again. But next time, they'll speak to us as equals. Hours later, she stood alone on the observation deck, watching the dawn rise over the planet. The golden light spread across the curve of the world like forgiveness. Her reflection looked older now, eyes ringed with fatigue, but steady. A faint transmission broke through the static, an open frequency, untranslated. An alien voice, trembling but sincere. Humanity, we see you. Alara closed her eyes for a moment. Then she replied, Then maybe now you'll understand why we never stopped. She cut the channel and turned to Arjun, who had been standing quietly at her side. Status? Council fleets are withdrawing. They've issued no declaration. Just silence. She nodded. Let them process it. We've shown them what words couldn't. Arjun hesitated. Do you think they'll ever forgive us? Ilara watched the light spread across Earth's horizon. They don't need to. They just need to remember. The aftermath of the battle hung in silence. Wreckage drifted between Mars and the Moon, faintly glowing under the sun's reflection. The Terran fleet moved among the remains, collecting data and survivors, but no one celebrated. There were no cheers, no music, only the quiet hum of systems and the unspoken weight of what had begun. Admiral Ilara Vaz stood alone in the command observation deck of the Resolute Dawn. Her reflection merged with the field of burning debris beyond the glass. The void felt heavier now, as if the stars themselves were holding their breath. Captain Arjun Singh entered quietly, datapad in hand. "Council transmission just came through," he said. "Encrypted, priority 1. Ilara did in turn. "Let me guess. Condemnation, threats, and promises of peace through obedience?" He gave a faint, humorless smile. "Word for word. Play it anyway." The holodisplay flared to life. Chancellor Xyrix Talcon was gone, replaced by the Council's emergency proxy, a rotating assembly of alien delegates projected in sterile light. The Andari, the Vethin, the Kshar, each spoke with cold precision, each sentence a carefully measured blade. "This act of aggression," the Andari voice droned, "constitutes a violation of every interstellar accord. Humanity's continued defiance will be met with collective enforcement." Ilara cut the transmission. The light vanished, leaving only darkness and the faint reflection of her eyes. "Collective enforcement," she murmured. "That's their way of saying extermination." Arjun folded his arms. "They can't afford another war, not after what happened today. Half the galaxy watched their fleet die. Humiliation breeds vengeance faster than loss," Ilara said quietly. "They'll come again, harder, smarter." He hesitated. "Then maybe it's time we use Lazarus." Her gaze shifted toward him, sharp as glass. "We agreed it's the last resort. And if they bring every fleet in the Council? 10,000 ships, orbital bombardment, planetary sterilization? You can't stop that with clever tactics." Ilara looked back at the stars. "No. But you can change how they see us." He stepped closer. "You're talking about fear. I'm talking about memory." Hours later, the fleet assembled in lunar orbit. From above, Earth glowed, serene, unaware of the storm gathering beyond its skies. The Resolute Dawn anchored at the center, surrounded by the surviving ships of the Terran vanguard. In the ship's lower decks, the heart of Project Lazarus stirred for the first time. Deep in a chamber sealed by quantum locks, a single sphere of obsidian floated in magnetic suspension, surrounded by hundreds of neural conduits. The room hummed faintly, alive in a way no machine should be. Dr. Lyra Quinn stood before it, arms crossed, her expression tense. "You're really going through with this?" Ilara approached, her steps echoing in the sterile light. "The Council is already assembling another fleet. We have hours, maybe less." Lyra glanced at the hovering sphere. "Lazarus doesn't kill, Ilara. It shows. Once it starts, there's no controlling what every connected mind experiences. That's the point." Lyra's voice dropped. "You're not just fighting soldiers. You're about to tear open the consciousness of an entire galaxy." Ilara's tone was calm. "They wanted to understand humanity. I'll give them understanding." For a long moment neither spoke. The hum of the sphere deepened, the conduits glowing like veins beneath skin. Lyra sighed and entered the activation codes. "It'll reach every mind linked to the galactic network, leaders, soldiers, civilians. Once they see it, they won't unsee it." Ilara stepped closer, her voice quiet but certain. "Then they'll finally know what they've been underestimating." The first pulse went out invisible, a ripple through the lattice of communication relays stretching across 1,000 systems. It moved faster than light, faster than thought itself. One by one, every connected species paused mid-sentence, their eyes dilating as the flood began. They saw Earth's skies burning during the last war. They saw soldiers carrying wounded strangers through fire. They saw cities rebuilt from dust, children laughing among ruins, explorers reaching for the stars despite every reason to stop. They saw defiance not as rebellion, but as instinct. Chancellors and admirals across the galaxy fell silent as the images filled their minds, endless cycles of death, endurance, rebirth. Hiroshima. Chernobyl. The first steps on Mars. The silent courage of faces staring down hopeless odds and smiling anyway. Then the pulse deepened. They felt hunger, grief, love, the totality of what it meant to be human, raw and unfiltered. Empires had crushed resistance before, but none had ever faced the weight of empathy weaponized. On the Resolute Dawn, lights dimmed. The crew felt it too, echoes of memory threading through their minds, blending their consciousness into a single current. For a moment, no one spoke. Even Alara stood motionless, her breath caught as the data of centuries flowed through her. Arjun gripped the console. "It's overwhelming. It's who we are," Alara said, voice unsteady but resolute. "Every victory, every failure, every refusal to die." He looked at her, eyes wide. "You've turned humanity into a message." She shook her head. "Into a mirror." On Velar Prime, the Council convulsed under the onslaught of visions. Delegates screamed as they saw through human eyes. The Seriki successor, a young chancellor, clutched at his temples as the weight of human history crashed into his mind, the feeling of standing on the edge of annihilation and laughing because surrender wasn't in the vocabulary. Across the galaxy, fleets halted mid-flight. Soldiers lowered weapons. AI minds, confused by emotion they were never meant to feel, shut down entirely. For 31 seconds, the entire galactic network froze. The galaxy blinked. Then the visions ended. Silence returned, vast and endless. But it wasn't the same silence as before. Reports flooded into the Resolute Dawn, ships retreating, council channels collapsing, systems offline. The galactic core had gone dark. Lyra's voice came through the calm, soft and exhausted. "It worked. They're scared." Alara didn't smile. "Good. Fear remembers." Arjun turned toward her. "And what about us? What happens when they recover?" She looked at Earth, spinning below, clouds drifting peacefully over blue oceans. "Then we face them again. But next time, they'll speak to us as equals." Hours later, she stood alone on the observation deck, watching the dawn rise over the planet. The golden light spread across the curve of the world like forgiveness. Her reflection looked older now, eyes ringed with fatigue, but steady. A faint transmission broke through the static, an open frequency, untranslated. An alien voice, trembling but sincere. "Humanity, we see you." Alara closed her eyes for a moment. Then she replied, "Then maybe now you'll understand why we never stopped." She cut the channel and turned to Arjun, who had been standing quietly at her side. "Status? Council fleets are withdrawing. They've issued no declaration. Just silence." She nodded. "Let them process it. We've shown them what words couldn't." Arjun hesitated. "Do you think they'll ever forgive us?" Alara watched the light spread across Earth's horizon. "They don't need to. They just need to remember." From the farthest colonies to the core worlds, the story spread without transmission or propaganda. The days that followed were strange. The galaxy, once loud with arrogance and commerce, fell into a whisper. The great networks of the Council flickered uncertainly, and the old hierarchies fractured in quiet confusion. Whole star systems, once ruled by decree, now lingered in stunned silence, haunted by what they had seen in that 31-second vision. The Seriki called it the human pulse. The Andari labeled it the empathic cataclysm. The Terrans, however, said nothing. They simply rebuilt. Admiral Alara Voss hadn't slept in 3 days. The Resolute Dawn floated in low orbit above Earth, scarred but alive. Through the viewport, the blue sphere looked almost innocent, a lie told by distance. Captain Arjun Singh entered, his boots silent against the deck. "Communications from the outer colonies just came in. The Council fleets are still holding position beyond Jupiter. They're waiting." Alara turned slowly. "For what?" "For instructions, I think. Their command systems are still partially offline. The Lazarus effect scrambled more than memories, it disordered their hierarchy." Some ships are refusing to take orders at all. So the mighty council is paralyzed by their own perfection, Elara said quietly. They built a machine that could govern worlds, and we made it remember pain. Arjun hesitated. You don't sound proud. I'm not, she said. We didn't win by strength. We won because we showed them what they'd forgotten, to feel. The price of that clarity might not be something we want to live with. He studied her face, seeing the exhaustion she refused to admit. You're afraid they'll come again. I'm afraid they won't, she replied. He frowned. Explain. If they don't respond, if they retreat into fear instead of understanding, then the galaxy will fracture. The Council wasn't just a tyrant, it was a framework. Without it, chaos will fill the void. And humanity? We'll be blamed. The fire that burned the old order. Hours later, the Council sent its first emissary. The vessel was small, unarmed, and unlike any the Terrans had seen before, half organic, half luminous, as if woven from light and matter. It emerged near the moon and stopped without hailing, its mere presence a question. Elara ordered a direct approach. The resolute Dawn moved forward, slow and deliberate, weapons powered down. When the two ships aligned, a transmission cut through the silence. The voice was soft, distinctly non-seraphy, almost musical. This is Envoy Kether of the Vethan Assembly. We come without hostility. Elara exchanged a glance with Arjun. Open channel. The hologram that appeared was not like any projection she had seen. Kether shimmered in shades of blue-green light, translucent and fluid. Their form pulsed with rhythm, their face unreadable but calm. You've been silent, Elara said. So have you, Kether replied. It seems appropriate after what we all witnessed. Appropriate, Elara repeated. An interesting word for what nearly destroyed a civilization. Kether inclined their head. Destroyed? No. Changed, perhaps. We saw your past. Your grief. Your defiance. And your mercy. It was not conquest we witnessed, it was revelation. Arjun folded his arms. Revelation doesn't usually come with wreckage. Sometimes it must, Kether said simply. The Sereki Chancellor is dead. The Council no longer stands united. But there are those among us who believe. You may have forced us to remember why unity was worth having. Elara's voice softened. You speak as if forgiveness is possible. Kether's gaze flickered. Forgiveness? No. But recognition, perhaps. The bridge remained silent for several breaths. Then Elara asked, What does the galaxy intend to do? The others are afraid, Kether admitted. Some want to retaliate. Others to retreat. A few want to listen. And you? I am here, Kether said. That should answer your question. They met again hours later, face to face, aboard the Resolute Dawn. The envoy moved like liquid light through the airlock, graceful and strangely human in posture. Elara met them alone in the conference chamber. The air hummed with tension as they sat across from one another. Your people have a talent for surviving, Kether said. It's not a talent, Elara replied. It's a necessity. The envoy tilted their head. The Lazarus pulse, it was more than a weapon. It carried emotion, not command. Why did you choose to show us that? Because every treaty, every plea, every compromise we tried before failed, Elara said. You can't reason with those who think empathy is weakness. So we gave you truth instead of argument. Kether studied her carefully. And now that we've seen it? Now we see what you do next, she said. The envoy's luminescent hands folded together. The Sereti Empire is collapsing. Without them, the Council's power is fading. But something will fill that vacuum. You could if you wished. Elara's eyes hardened. We didn't fight to rule. Then why fight at all? She leaned forward, her voice steady but cold. Because we were tired of being told what we were worth. Kether was silent for a moment. Then, softly, perhaps we were too. When the meeting ended, Elara returned to the bridge. Arjun was waiting. How did it go? They're listening, she said. That's more than I expected. Do you trust them? No. But I'll take honesty over obedience any day. Arjun nodded, exhaling slowly. So what now? No, she said. We start something new. Within days, transmissions began flooding the Terran network. Requests for talks, trade, collaboration. Species that had ignored humanity for centuries were reaching out. The word respect began to circulate through council channels where once only subordinate had existed. Earth itself felt the shift. Media outlets broadcast cautiously optimistic headlines. Galactic truce in motion, humanity invited to rejoin diplomatic assembly. Children pointed at the night sky, asking if the stars still hated them. And yet, Alara knew peace was not that simple. History had teeth, and fear left long shadows. She stood once more before the viewport, watching the lights of Earth flicker far below. We've bought ourselves time, she said quietly. Arjun joined her. Time's all humanity ever needed. Then let's not waste it. That night, in her private quarters, Alara recorded one final message for the archives. Her voice was calm, steady, but carried the weight of 1,000 years of silence broken. This is Admiral Alara Voss, Terran Confederation. The Council declared us subordinate, and the galaxy agreed. We did not answer with surrender, but with understanding. What they saw was not vengeance, it was identity. Humanity is not the youngest child of the stars. We are their memory. We endure because we remember what others forget, the value of pain, the price of peace, the strength to stand when no one else will. The galaxy blinked, and when its eyes open again, we will be waiting. She ended the recording and stared into the darkness outside. Beyond the orbit of the moon, thousands of Terran ships held silent vigil, their lights forming a constellation visible even from Earth. It was not a fleet anymore, it was a monument, a promise. The stars seemed closer that night, as if listening. Alara whispered to them, her voice barely audible. We're not done yet. And somewhere, far across the galactic rim, among species still trembling from the echoes of Lazarus, the phrase began to spread in 100 different tongues. Do not underestimate Earth. The galaxy didn't end with fire, it ended with a conversation. And in that quiet, something new began. Months had passed since the Lazarus pulse. Across the stars, the aftershocks still rippled. Systems once loyal to the Council now stood alone, their leaders shaken by what they had felt through humanity's echo. Empires questioned themselves. Fleets stood idle. No one wanted to face the species that had made the galaxy feel human again. From orbit, Earth no longer looked small. It gleamed with the quiet authority of survival. Admiral Alara Voss watched the world rotate beneath her from the observation deck of the Resolute Dawn. Its surface glowed with city lights, each cluster a heartbeat in the dark. For the first time in centuries, no enemy fleets orbited nearby. Only Terran vessels, aligned like guardians in the black. Captain Arjun Singh entered, a faint trace of disbelief in his voice. The last of the Sereti garrison surrendered on Orion's edge. Without firing a shot. Alara didn't turn. They've seen what defiance costs. They don't want to pay the same price. He stepped beside her, his tone quieter. Or maybe they finally learned fear. Fear isn't learning, she said. It's remembering. He glanced at her. You've been saying that a lot lately. Because that's all we've done, remind the galaxy of what it forgot. We bled for respect, but I'm not sure we wanted what came with it. Arjun hesitated. They're calling you the architect of the new order. She sighed. Titles are just chains made of words. Don't let anyone put one on you. Too late, he said with a faint smile. They already call me the man who carried her orders. Her lips twitched, but the humor didn't reach her eyes. Then make sure the next ones are worth carrying. Later that day, the fleet's communication hub received an encrypted priority transmission. It bore the seal of the restructured Galactic Assembly, an institution hastily born from the wreckage of the old council. Alara stood before the holographic display as it came to life. The new assembly looked nothing like its predecessor. The opulent architecture of Velar Prime had been replaced by a neutral projection chamber, devoid of banners or color. 1,000 alien faces filled the space, but this time, the human emblem wasn't at the edge. It was at the center. Admiral Voss, said Envoy Kether, their shimmering form once again representing the Vethin Assembly. The galaxy owes you a debt it cannot measure. Elara kept her tone neutral. We didn't do it for gratitude. Nevertheless, Kether continued, the Assembly recognizes Earth's sovereignty and extends an invitation to co-chair the Reconstruction Charter. Humanity is no longer subordinate. You will help guide what comes next. Elara's crew exchanged stunned glances. For centuries, humanity had been the youngest voice at the table. Now it was being asked to lead. Arjun leaned forward slightly. They're serious. Kether's gaze softened. The galaxy saw its own reflection in your species and did not like what it found. But you showed us that weakness and empathy are not opposites, they're proof of survival. We need that perspective to rebuild. Elara said nothing for a long moment. The bridge was utterly still. Then she asked, what about the Sereti? Kether's glow dimmed slightly. Their fleets are broken, their empires shattered. The survivors wish for amnesty under the Assembly's supervision. Amnesty, Elara repeated. After they enslaved worlds and executed billions? Yes, Kether said. Because the alternative is extinction. And we've all seen what that looks like through your eyes. Elara turned away from the display. Humanity has no desire for vengeance. But mercy should never erase memory. Kether inclined their head. Then guide us, Admiral. Help us remember. The transmission ended. Silence lingered like smoke. Arjun finally spoke. So, co-chair of the galaxy. Congratulations. Elara stared at the blank screen. We didn't climb a throne. We just stopped kneeling. Days later, the resolute dawn descended through Earth's atmosphere for the first time since the war. The clouds parted to reveal continents reborn, new cities rising on old scars, rivers of light stretching across oceans. Humanity was no longer preparing for survival. It was preparing for legacy. The landing bay was crowded with civilians, soldiers, and scientists. The roar that met Elara when she stepped out was overwhelming, applause, cheers, and the word Admiral echoing through the air like prayer. But she didn't smile. She saluted once, then walked past them quietly. In the great halls of the United Terran Assembly, reporters swarmed her with questions. What now? Will there be peace? Is Earth ready to lead? She answered with simplicity. Peace isn't a promise. It's a practice. We'll earn it every day or lose it again. Later that night, she visited the memorial at New Geneva. It was a single wall of obsidian, stretching a mile long, etched with the names of every Terran who had died under Council rule. The surface reflected the stars above, as if the fallen had become constellations themselves. Arjun found her standing there in silence. They're already rewriting the history, he said quietly. The broadcasts call it the Dawn Accord. They're making it sound cleaner than it was. It never is, she said. History's job is to forget blood. Ours is to remember it. He studied her face. You could rest now. You've earned that much. She shook her head. Leaders don't rest. They fade when they're no longer needed. I want to make sure when I fade, we're standing on something solid. He smiled faintly. And after that? After that, she said softly. Maybe I'll go home. The following week, Earth transmitted its first unified message to the galaxy under the new charter. It wasn't a speech of triumph, it was a declaration of intent. This is not an empire. Elara's voice echoed through the network. We will not rule by fear or decree. Humanity will lead by the same truth that brought us here, the strength to remember pain and the courage to rise from it. Every world, every species, every child born under any star has the right to stand without chains. The galaxy doesn't belong to us. It belongs to whoever believes in what comes next. The message spread across thousands of systems. Some listened in silence. Others wept. A few swore allegiance. But none ignored it. That night, Elara finally returned to her family's home near the Atlantic Arcology. The air smelled of rain, and the horizon shimmered with city lights. She walked along the shoreline alone, waves lapping against her boots. For once, there was no urgency in her step. Arjun's voice came over her comm link. Admiral, Assembly just confirmed. The new charter has passed. Humanity and Vethin co-chairs. It's official. She looked out toward the dark sea. Then maybe it's finally over. Or just beginning, he replied. A small smile touched her lips. Same thing, really. She ended the call and let the device fall silent. Above her, the stars were brighter than she remembered, uncertain, but alive. For centuries, humanity had been told it was too young, too reckless, too dangerous to be trusted. Now, it was the standard by which others measured themselves. Elara turned her eyes skyward and whispered, We didn't conquer the stars. We reminded them to look up. The waves crashed gently at her feet, the world quiet except for the wind. Somewhere out there, beyond 1,000 suns, the galaxy stirred, different now, wary but awake.